Under the Radar, bringing movies and people together, one frame at a time. Hey guys, I'm Randy Younger, and this is another episode of Under the Radar, bringing movies and people together, one frame at a time. And right now, I have with me a great panel of film critics. I'm really excited for this. We have two great film aficionados in my presence. We've got Miss Ivy Lofberg. Welcome back, Ivy.
Hi, great to be here.
Good to see you again, Ivy. And here for his second appearance on Under the Radar, Tyler Michael. Tyler, welcome back, sir.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be back, and it's also a pleasure to see you again. I've really missed you.
Missed you too, sir. You're a good man, and it's always nice to see you. So before we get into it, we're going to be doing the 40th anniversary celebration of a great comedy classic, Trading Places. We're going to follow that with a nice look at John Landis's filmography, who he's gone from comedy to horror and back again. And he was very popular in the 70s and 80s, kind of went down in the 90s, but he left behind such a great legacy. Before we get into John Landis, I just wanted to ask you guys, Ivy, how are you doing these days?
I'm doing really great. I got to see a wonderful movie this Sunday called Bottoms, which I absolutely loved so much. It was really fascinating because it was made by Orion Pictures, and they were recently bought by MGM, and now they're making these great, like raunchy, fun comedies again, and which was really fun. Like it really, Bottoms really felt like a movie that was like one of those crazy 80s, fun movies it's like a female fight club in high school. It was the most fun I've had at the movies for a while.
Nice. Yeah, no, we reviewed it last week and enjoyed it very much. It was like refreshingly original, and the fact that Orion Pictures is behind it, it is very nostalgic, and it definitely takes me back to seeing that opening logo of the stars spinning and spelling out Orion. So it was really nice to see that logo again. They did update it a little bit, but it's still pretty cool. Yeah, Bottoms was a really good one for sure. Tyler, how are you, sir?
I'm doing quite well. I'm getting very excited for next month. Next month is spooky season, and I love it so very much. I'm a big horror fanatic, and I've got a few great plans coming up. Hopefully everything works well, and I'm going to be scaring at Blood Manor during that month, which I can't wait to scare the pants off of people.
That's so cool. Can you tell anyone a little bit about the costumes or the sets?
Well, I don't want to give too much away because we also have some new things coming into the manor. But bottom line is, it's a two-story attraction. One story is all blood and guts, while the other floor is all in 3D. So that's all I'm gonna say. That's all I'm gonna share. But I am looking forward to a good haunt this year, as well as marathoning through scary movies, which I do all month long.
That's amazing. Speaking of which, a couple weeks ago in Huntington, Long Island, at the Cinema Arts Center, they did a zombie movie marathon. 5 movies from 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. It was one of the coolest weekends of my life. I'm not gonna.
You got to go? Oh my God.
Yeah.
What did they show?
It was an amazing experience. They do it every year. They kind of change up the movies every year. But yeah, I wish you guys were there with me.
I want to go.
Yeah,
Right
it's awesome. Yeah, I went with a good friend of the show, CJ Oakland, and we sat through all 5 films, and between each film was a little break, like sort of like intermissions. And yeah, so just briefly, they did it was Army of Darkness, Friday the 13th Part 7, The New Blood, The Reanimator, which I actually had never seen before. I loved that one. That was great. And then the last 2 were 1990's Night of the Living Dead remake, and they closed things off with a movie I never even heard of called The Gates of Hell. So yeah, that was awesome. I'm still reliving it. Like I'm still like riding that high. It was so cool. But I hope to see you guys there next year. So
I would love to attend it very much.
Cool. And as for me, some plugs for me right off the bat. I recently got involved with a website called Cinema Daily US, and basically I'm now contributing interviews and reviews to this website. And basically my first assignment was this Apple TV Plus show called Still Up, about two insomniacs in England. And basically it's like kind of like sexual tension. Will they or won't they get together? And I watched all 8 episodes. It was fantastic. I highly recommend it. It's called Still Up. So
How cool.
Appreciate you sharing it.
yeah. Thank you. Yeah. So that's a new development for me, and I'm really happy about that. Good people over there at Cinema Daily. And yeah. So guys, we have a lot to cover. 1983 brought us probably one of the greatest comedy films of all time, Trading Places. You've got Dan Aykroyd, who plays this snobby rich guy. You've got Eddie Murphy, who's the total opposite, who plays this con artist who basically results to crime. Now, Dan Aykroyd's character, Lewis Winthorpe, his employers are these two super rich guys that are so bored that they decide to basically make a bet to see if they could switch Aykroyd and Murphy to turn the rich to the poor and the poor to the rich. And it's basically a take on the classic Prince and the Pauper story. And yeah, it's updated for the 80s, and it is so well done. John Landis kills it as the director in this. And it's got a great score, great soundtrack, great performances. Jamie Lee Curtis is also in it as the love interest. And you've got Ralph Bellamy and Donna Michi as the two rich brothers. And it's just a fun movie. I'll be real quick with this anecdote, but when I was a kid, one of the very first VHSs I remember playing was Trading Places. So my parents had this thing before I was born. I was born in 1985. This movie came in 83. So they had the VHS for this, and I just had some of my earliest memories are looking at that VHS cover and playing it in the VCR. So this movie really hits home for me. It's super nostalgic, and I watched it last night. I rewatched it. It holds up. So yeah, Ivy, ladies first. What are your thoughts on this classic film?
I really agree with you. I think what's extraordinary too is that Eddie Murphy was like 19 or 20 when he made that movie. He was kind of fresh off of, he's on SNL, and I saw a great interview last night that talked about how he was basically keeping SNL alive at that point with his sketches. Right. And just to watch him make that leap into cinema and in such a classic film, I think it was especially something really exciting because so many of the SNL cast, it's really hit or miss, once they go into movies. And
yeah,
like for Eddie Murphy to partner up with John Landis that early and make a truly high quality classic film that really stands up over time. And I love too that it starts to get into some really rich ideas about class and race, and in a way that I feel like holds up as well. It's actually very modern, I find, in the way that it talks about in just by putting them in switching their environments. That's kind of all that they had to do. And I love that just these SNL alums were really a part of, they really got to show what they can really do and make a beautiful film. I think it is a beautiful film.
It is. Totally agree with you. It is a definite early SNL to movie transfer. And I think this is so you got the Blues Brothers actually was before this. So that was probably the first really successful, if not the first SNL movie.
It is the first SNL movie.
It is. So I guess this is the second. So, and just the chemistry between Aykroyd and Murphy is just so perfect. Every scene that they're in together is just hilarious. And yeah, it's this movie has always put a smile on my face. No matter when I see it, if it's ever on cable, if I catch it, streaming, whatever, it's just a really it's just a fun movie. And yeah, Ivy, it definitely has some strong themes of like class, and it's a good commentary on society at large. And I also agree that it does, even though it is an 80s movie, it is pretty timeless, and it could be appreciated in pretty much any time period. So yeah, for sure. That's awesome. Uh Tyler, how about you? What are your thoughts of this classic?
Well, this is my second time viewing the film. The first time I viewed it was actually on Christmas Eve last year because I didn't have anything better to watch. I pretty much watched all of my favorite Christmas films with the exception of the one I watch on Christmas Day, which is It's a Wonderful Life. And I really wanted to watch something different and alternative.
Mhm.
And when I heard about this film, it sounded like a good comedy. Like, Eddie Murphy and Dan Aykroyd literally trading places, put it, again, like you said, it's a Prince and the Pauper kind of movie just told in the 80s. And, I went into it and I enjoyed it. I'm gonna be honest. I think it's a really funny movie. I wasn't like roaring with laughter when I saw the film, but
Mhm.
I was also enjoying the characters. I was enjoying, the chemistry. There were definitely moments that had me laughing at my seat as well, but what really made the film very fascinating for me personally is not only can it be seen as an alternative Christmas movie, but it can also be seen as a 80s version of a screwball comedy from the 30s and 40s, like films like His Girl Friday,
Mhm.
or what really came to my mind, My Man Godfrey,
Okay.
which is, one that makes fun of, the rich, and the poor,
Mhm.
puts like, I don't know if you've seen the film, but long story short, a poor man actually gets a job as a butler working for the rich class, and the film just satirizes everything. It just satirizes the rich, as the man who is now in the working class is just like, oh my gosh, really? They behave this way? Are they really that dumb and spoiled? Like, it's the dry humor that you definitely get in this movie, Trading Places,
Right.
mainly from Eddie Murphy. So that's how it reminds me of those kinds of old screwball comedies from way back when, with that
Yeah.
80s flair, that's really over the top, but also is very smart, very clever with its ideas and themes.
Mhm. Yeah.
And overall, watching it a second time, I enjoyed it even more.
Mhm.
And fun fact, even the actors that are playing the Duke brothers, the villains, they also came from that era of screwball comedy. So John Landis definitely was homaging
Oh
that
yeah.
genre.
Mm.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things I love about the film. How it
Yeah.
takes like old Hollywood themes and ideas and just brings it back to the 80s with new commentary, new jokes, and definitely goes above and beyond. Plus with two of the greatest comedians of all time,
Right.
as well as Jamie Lee Curtis, who also proves her worth in this film as an actress than just a scream queen.
Mm.
Touche. Yes. And yeah, so Landis definitely he respects the classics, and he kind of utilizes similar techniques, similar themes. There's another film actually that came out after this, Spies Like Us, that Landis did that also has a lot of homages to like classic films like Bing Crosby and Bob Hope. Bob Hope is actually in a brief cameo in Spies Like Us. So Landis definitely respects the classics, and I really I respect him for respecting the classics. So yeah, Trading Places, guys. This movie, yeah, for me it's timeless. Tyler, it's awesome that you saw it at Christmas time because this is a definite Christmas movie slash
Mm-hmm.
New Year's Eve movie, and just so much fun, and one of the first successful SNL movies. So happy that it is celebrating its 40th anniversary, and hoping that a new generation of fans will discover it because it is really that good. Um, I, I did, however, laugh out loud a few times last night, and I mean, yeah, this movie for me, it never gets old. So
Mm-hmm.
And I'd love to add too, what I love about it is that even the cover art for the movie, it's like it shows that both Eddie Murphy's character and Dan Aykroyd's character are getting something great out of this experiment, and I really like that they really push that forward. Like even on the cover, like Eddie Murphy is like, this trade actually did work out well for me too, and did elevate my life in some ways, and I think to put that, I think in the movie was really a wonderful thing, because historically that hasn't been the case. So I feel like it was kind of also righting a few different wrongs in cinema, and how those class divides can be portrayed, and that they gave Eddie Murphy's character, got so much good fortune too out of that. Like it didn't, he wasn't just kind of being used as an experiment. He really had a wonderful outcome for himself, and Dan Aykroyd's character learned a bunch. So I think, but none of it, all of it's very funny. I think that seems like one of the hardest things to do, is to make all of that really funny also.
Like The Last Act is definitely a revenge story, and our two main characters definitely get that revenge. No spoilers. I mean, it's a 40-year-old movie. I don't think I'm spoiling anything, but yeah, definitely getting the Dukes brothers to become poor was really hilarious. And there is actually they it's another film that is done by John Landis that has actually a cameo from the Duke brothers, and it's just the most priceless cameo. It's my favorite cameo of any movie. The Dukes brothers are in Coming to America, so basically that ties it into, I guess, like John Landis's universe. So yeah, I hope I didn't spoil that for anybody, but Coming to America, that's another classic. Not as great as Trading Places, but still a decent Landis comedy for sure. I also wanted to talk briefly about all the other cameos here. So you've got Jim Belushi. He plays a drunken train passenger towards the end of the film, basically dressed up as an ape, and that storyline kind of closes things out. We also have Frank Oz of the Muppets, and as Yoda. He actually plays a police officer who is booking Winthorpe, and he's actually been in a number of Landis films as well, other films. We've got Bo Diddley, who plays the pawnbroker. He's a singer, and also Al Franken plays a drunken baggage handler, also in the train scene as they're heading to New York. So yeah. Oh, also, before I close that out, Giancarlo Esposito has a very, very small part as a prisoner who's in Valentine's cell right before he gets bailed out. So I think that might have been his first role, or one of his first roles, but you all know him from Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, Do the Right Thing. I think this might have been his first movie, but it's fantastic to see him. Very random. Also, I also want to mention Denholm Elliott, the late great British actor. He plays Coleman, the butler, Winthorpe's brother, butler here. He was also in the Indiana Jones movies. And also Paul Gleason plays Clarence Beeks, the sleazy spy who's working with the Dukes brothers. So you would probably best know him from this and Die Hard. He was the police officer in charge of the situation at Nakatomi. So great cast, very well rounded, and Ralph Bellamy and Don Amici as the Duke brothers. I don't think there's anyone else that could have portrayed these two brothers. They were pitch perfect in their performance. So I'm really happy about that. This movie
They really were.
Yeah, but I mean, I love it. Like Landis did a great job. The entire cast did a great job, and this movie actually was, I believe, yeah, it was nominated for a few Oscars, and yeah, it's just a wonderful film. It's the fourth highest grossing film of 1983, by the way. So it's interesting. And great use of Mozart's music. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. And Elmer Bernstein did the score. He actually would go on to do the score for Stripes and Ghostbusters. So that those two films were directed by Ivan Reitman, who was a good friend of John Landis. And they have, if you look at their films, they're kind of similar in tone. Reitman never really did a horror movie, but he touched on it with Ghostbusters, some scary moments in Ghostbusters. But yeah, Trading Places, great film. Happy 40th, Trading Places, and here's to future generations to enjoy this wonderful gem. So yeah, okay, guys. So John Landis directed this film, and he's directed many, many other films. I just wanted to go around real quick. Do you favorite John Landis film, Tyler? Other than Trading Places.
Of course, of course. Well, if you were to ask me maybe 10 years ago, I would say Animal House. And while it is my second favorite John Landis film, my favorite actually goes to the Blues Brothers because ever since when I was a kid, I grew up in a blues household. My father was a blues musician. He gave me a VHS copy of the film when I was a kid, and I used to obsess over watching it all the time growing up. And while I do love Animal House for what it did for, the college comedies, took like, teenagers to the next level by making them more raunchy than they ever did before, as well as having more funny moments in the Blues Brothers. What I love about the Blues Brothers is it pays a loving tribute to the blues culture. It's ridiculously funny, mainly from the deadpan deliveries from Dan Aykroyd and John Belushi, while also over the top and humorous, especially when you get those car chases, which are some of the best in cinema. Um, if not the best. It also has room for like quiet moments, character moments. Like one of my favorite scenes in film altogether, which honestly just says a lot, is just them hanging out in their blues apartment, in Elwood's apartment. Which, yeah, it's silly because of how small it is, and there's a train coming in every 5 seconds, but you also like get the feeling of them bonding as brothers, and they don't like go into preachy dialogue. You just see them communicating, Elwood tucking in Jake into bed. You see all of their interests, on the walls of their love for blues. You got Louis Jordan's Let the Good Times Roll playing in the background. It just gives you a moment to just chill with the Blues Brothers and just see them bond as characters, which is an element that just cements my love for the movie, among many other things, including the soundtrack. So
No, that's awesome. No, that moment of quiet reflection, just hanging out in the apartment. You rarely see the characters kind of just sleep or eat. They're usually just in the middle of the action, but there's no moments of like quiet reflection where they just hang out. And yeah, that was a really cool moment. Love the Blues Brothers. I rewatched a bunch of Landis films in preparation for this recording, and that was I think that was the first one I popped in, and it's so good. 1980, the car crash, the car scenes are insane. I think they went through like easily 100 police cars in that last sequence, and there's no CGI. It's all practical. It's all like they're really crashing and flipping, and it's nuts. I can't think of a better duo than Aykroyd and Belushi. They were pitch perfect. One of the few great performances from Belushi before he passed in the 80s. Yeah, I love this movie. It really gave me a newfound respect for Landis, and the music is great. I'm not a blues guy at all. I don't really know blues music, but this movie kind of converted me. So I'm really happy about that. And I think one of my favorite parts is the end with a Spielberg camp. We have Steven Spielberg in a cameo.
Oh yeah.
As like a government clerk, and it's just so random. And of course, Spielberg and Landis would work together a couple years later for the Twilight Zone movie, which we're gonna definitely talk about that. But the Blues Brothers, so much fun, really, really. So Tyler, that's your number one Landis?
Yes, personally. It's my #1 favorite. I mean, not to say that I still don't love Animal House just the same. There's just more that I appreciate from the Blues Brothers from a filmmaking standpoint. It's not like I found new flaws with Animal House or anything like that. It just, to me, just amazes me more as I get older.
Sure, yeah, and I totally respect that. I think I saw just this was probably my second time seeing it overall. First time I think I saw it as a teenager. I didn't quite, appreciate it. But now I'm looking back at it and really it's fantastic. It's just a fun, ridiculous ride.
Oh yeah, and just one small fun fact about me, just to want to share a bit of nostalgia. I would actually even play the Blues Brothers soundtrack in my classroom in elementary school. And while kids are like going, "What are you singing? How is this groovy?" I'm like, "I love this. So fun, pretentious. I'm sorry, but I love it. I love dancing to it." And the girls, actually, some of my classmates were getting in on it too. So it's a childhood favorite, and I appreciate it more as an adult. That's all I can really say.
Yeah, it's a fine wine. It definitely ages well.
Yeah.
Ivy, are you a Blues Brother aficionado?
I am. Yeah, I'm really agreeing with everything that you guys are sharing. I love the relationship between them, and I love that they're just like creating their own world together. And again, you have like two of the greatest comedians of all time, brothers. And just what I love about John Landis is like I feel like you can really see what his passions are. Like he has a passion for horror, he has passion for music, and I just love that he like it was one of those movies like you said, Tyler, where you liked, or you said, Rand, like you like the music more after watching it, or like if you've already loved it, you love it more. If you haven't, then you become interested in it. And I think that is an incredible feat, to do in a movie, to make it funny and also to like share your passion for something in a way that makes other people want to get into it too, and see what it's all about. And just they're so adorable together. They're
They
just
are.
all the trouble they get into, and they always get out of it. And
And they don't even
they don't,
react to it either.
yeah,
They just
they
like,
don't
"What
learn
happened?
anything.
Oh well."
No learning for these guys.
You could really believe that Aykroyd and Belushi are like real brothers. Like I don't know, they don't really look like each other, but their mannerisms kind of mirror each other, and they complement each other so well in this movie.
Yeah,
You know,
and it's one of those films that I also admire. There's no origin story of how they met or anything. It's just implied through their actions.
right?
That's why I love it so much. You get that brotherly bond with them, and we don't need to know what their stories. We get enough of that through the dialogue and the mise-en-scène when they go to the orphanage, when the plot begins to
Right.
unravel.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, they kind of just throw you right into the action, which is amazing. It doesn't waste any time, yeah, telling the origin for sure. It's such a shame though that Belushi passed away just just a few years after this. They wanted him to play Peter Venkman in Ghostbusters. Actually, he instead of Bill Murray was going to be Belushi, but Belushi passed, and as a tribute, they created the character, the Ghost of Slimer, to kind of be like an inspiration, a tribute to Belushi. So that, and of course, Aykroyd was in Ghostbusters as well, and a fitting tribute, I think, to his character Bluto in Animal House. Just totally ridiculous. But I could have definitely seen Belushi as Venkman. I think that would have been really cool, actually.
It would be.
You know. Also, I wanted to mention that they did come out with a Blues Brothers sequel in 1998 called Blues Brothers 2000, which I actually watched as in addition to preparation for tonight. And you could just tell a lot of them were just kind of phoning it in. Belushi wasn't involved, obviously. Neither was Jim Belushi, which I was surprised. But because Jim Belushi has been working with the actual Blues Brothers band, and they do tour every now and then. But in this movie, Belushi was basically replaced by John Goodman, who is awesome. I love John Goodman, but sadly in this context, he's no Belushi.
And he's not even given anything to do in the film either. Like,
Right.
can you remember any moment with him in this movie aside from him singing?
It's
It's
sad. It's just like very like just superficial, kind of like for his image there, just to have him in the band.
Mhm.
So it's not just Aykroyd. You also have Joe
Yeah.
Morton who gets involved with the band, and there's a 10-year-old kid who they
Oh,
pick up from the orphanage. It's just kind of like all over the place. It's not very focused.
no.
I didn't even remember like a central plot. It was kind of just like things happening, and it did not work at all. It was kind of, in a way, it was sort of an insult to the original film.
It
Uh,
is.
you know what I
I'm
mean?
sorry.
No, no, no. I was not a fan of it. I was trying so hard to get into the action, but I just couldn't help but think back to the original film and how much better that was as opposed to this really just pretty bad sequel.
Oh
Um,
yeah, I mean, if there's one redeeming quality in the film, there's one redeeming quality for me. Not something where I want to watch the whole film to witness all this again, but for what it's worth, the soundtrack is amazing.
sure.
Like, especially at the end of the film, how they get all these different blues musicians and rock and roll musicians together, like Jimmy Vaughn, Paul Schaefer,
Right.
with BB King, Eric Clapton, Isaac Hayes. Like, oh my gosh, it was
Yeah, yeah.
just incredible. It was an incredible lineup. But everything else, outside of the soundtrack, they were just doing it just to make money. That's really what it was. There was no passion or a lack of passion.
I know.
I mean, honestly, I think the only performance that stands out in the film is Joe Morton because I
Hmm.
feel like he's actually trying. He has more dimension to his character. In fact, the film was just about him and Elwood's relationship. While it wouldn't be as good as the original, I
Yeah.
feel like it would have made up for something because, having a little kid tag along with
Yeah.
uh, a blues brother also in the suit. I'm not angry at the actor playing him. He did what he could. And to be fair, this character could have been more annoying, but it doesn't fit the blues brother aesthetic. It just
No.
feels like a way to like lure little kids into this PG-13 rated movie that actually has more raunchy and dirty humor than the original, which makes no sense. It was just a
It,
mess.
it was a mess. It was a total disappointment. And yeah, you would think like with the Blues Brothers, I mean, they could have gone a different route. They could have just kept making more sequels or even come out with like an animated series. That was kind of a trend in the 90s.
Oh yeah.
Uh, I think I think the Blues Brothers should have just been a standalone film. But we're probably going to get an origin story, kind of a prequel type of thing. Because they're running out of ideas, Hollywood. But I hope they don't make any more sequels because yeah, 2000 was just atrocious.
It should have just been a concert film. That's what it just should have been, a
Hmm.
concert film.
Yeah.
Under the Radar is brought to you by Magnitude Jewelry. Add a 2 to match your attitude. Patent pending interchange genuine gemstone and crystal EMF protection jewelry. For more information, please visit magnitudejewelry.com/gemgirl or call 718-268-6634.
The Blues Brothers, like an actual band. I mentioned it
Mhm.
earlier, and I think that they do perform every now and then. There's a one theater in Huntington as well, called the Paramount, where they did have the actual Blues Brothers. They had Aykroyd and James Belushi, Jim Belushi, and
Mhm.
they have a band there that they perform every now and then. They tour as well. So that's cool. Just stick to the music. Just don't do another movie because, yeah, it's
The
bad.
movie was just lightning in the bottle. You can never recapture it.
It's
So,
just so unique, so fun. So that's awesome. Ivy, how about you? Favorite Landis film?
Gosh, yeah, I really agree with a lot of what you two are sharing. I would say also one of my favorites is the American Werewolf
Oh,
I
London.
just saw that for the first time last night. Please take the floor, though. I loved
Yeah,
it, by the way.
right? Yeah, completely. It's so cool. I love it. I love the just those practical effects. Like even now, with all the special effects that we have, I think that that's one of that is the scariest transformation scene I've still ever seen to this point because of all the practical. Yeah,
it's
it's
incredible.
Well,
incredible.
I would say it's both scary and humorous because also listen what's playing in the background, but that's part of the fun. It has a really good dark sense of humor that's actually well judged tonally, in my opinion.
I think this was one of the first film, definitely one of the first popular films to basically fuse horror and comedy to just create this new, basically a new genre, I'd say. And Landis would go on to direct many more movies in this vein. Most notably, Michael Jackson's Thriller music video, which uses the same special effects, makeup effects from Rick Baker.
And sound effects.
Yeah, yeah. Just I don't think there's another filmmaker that really kind of duplicated that style. And just An American Werewolf in London is quintessential John Landis for sure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
100%.
I totally agree. I think he you mentioned the Thriller video too, that really changed how music videos were made. Like it was the first mini movie, and for that to be our first, I mean, it will always be um I think it will always in my heart the best video ever made. I think just because
Agreed.
yeah, it combines that horror and humor in such a beautiful way. Like I really feel like a show like I'd love to see more. I'd like What We Do in the Shadows. Like I would love to see um them do like I think American Werewolf it would be a really interesting TV show done by Landis. I think that he has such a gift for really making it you feel like you're there and like you're experiencing what it's like for this guy to go through this insane journey that he just kind of accidentally fell into. And I think that that's what a lot of I love about Landis's movies is a lot of them are just characters who fall into these crazy situations and end up just going along for the ride, and or they're the crazy characters themselves, and or they get that way from the with their environments that they're in. So I feel like he just has a way of creating these environments that you can't help but to have empathy for everybody who's going through the experience. I feel like
They're all very like ordinary people, but the things that happen and they're in ordinary situations to a certain extent, but eventually it kind of escalates into something like Trading Places. Things get really crazy, really ridiculous, and it's like, how did we get to this point? It's like with Werewolf in London, it's just yeah, you're definitely on that journey. You're actually feeling what he's feel like. I always imagine my hands like stretching and my face transforming, and it's so horrific. It's like, and there's also a really random, totally random nightmare sequence with like these monster Nazis. Do you remember that? I remember that. I was like, that scene was so weird, and it didn't really fit, but at the same time, it kind of did fit. And I'll just never forget that how out of place that scene was, but it was just so well done, so awesome.
Yeah.
Also the scene where the main character he's transformed at this point, and he's basically stalking that British businessman in the subway, and like that was so creepy the way that they filmed, the way that Landis shot that. the sound design in that scene, the camera work, it was really, really, really scary. So yeah, Landis, he really did horror great. Like really, that was definitely his wheelhouse. That was
And of course, you know, we talked about Coming to America, the first one. Yeah, is certainly an incredible classic Landis as well. I'm embarrassed to say I've loved Coming to America ever since I was a kid, and I'm embarrassed to say I didn't know it was a Landis movie because I think it is so different from his other movies. I just recently found out it was a Landis movie,
Oh,
which I'm
really?
embarrassed about. But I think it is because it is radically different from anything else, you know, that he's made. But it's another just classic film. Like he really has a way of just stepping back and allowing the story to tell itself. Like Coming to America also has a lot of the things that the Blues Brothers does, where nothing feels like it's in a hurry, but there's so much happening. But he gives so much space for characters just to talk and just to interact. And, you know, you get to just see their relationships and just them hanging out together a lot. And so you really get to know them. And the story is always like pushing you forward, but nothing ever feels frantic. You know, it feels very relaxed. And even with all the crazy stuff that happens in that movie. And there's so many, it's a really classic tale also, you know, of the prince who goes in search of his future queen and goes to Queens, of course, to find her. I mean, that joke in itself is so great joke. And just the, you know, that movie really made Eddie Murphy into a next level. Like it really, I read that Coming to America was one of the first, you know, a movie that portrayed like a Black cast. Became huge in Japan, and that was like the first film of that to, you know, so it really was a trailblazing film in that way as well, of really getting all, you know, African American cast into the international love. You know, that movie is beloved all over the world. And I, you know, I think that's really cool that John Landis was part of that, and he was hip to telling these incredible stories and working with the best people.
definitely. Yeah, that movie. I had no idea. Popular in Japan. Okay. Good trivia. Yeah. Yeah, that's a fun movie. The sequel, which came out a couple years ago, Coming to America, not so great, but we don't have to get into that. So yeah, Coming to America was in 88. So that was 5 years after Trading Places. By this point, Murphy had done two of the Beverly Hills Cop movies. And he basically, at this point, he was solidified as a movie star. So definitely a fun movie. Also a great cast. So yeah. So guys, I just want to, sorry.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, if viewers might like a fun thing, it's on Netflix. It's called The Movies That Made Us, and they have a whole one about making Coming to America, which is really fun to watch. There was fist fights breaking out on set, and a lot of Paula Abdul did the dance sequence, which is super cool. And it's really fun to see all of the chaos that went into making that movie. It's fun too, because I mean, so it was so messy, but the movie feels so well put together. So they did a great job.
And also a good soundtrack, good cameos, like the Duke brothers showing up. I couldn't get over that. It's so cool. So guys, I just wanted to go down Landis's filmography, and we touched on the classics, obviously, but there are still a bunch that we did not mention yet. I wanted to just go back. Okay, so I'm a completist, so I wanted to see as much as I could of Landis's work. I went back and I actually saw his very first movie that he directed called Schlock. 1973. And oh, Ivy, you saw it too, right?
I did. Yeah.
This movie was so bad, but it's a first movie. So, and he would go on to create some much better films. This one was kind of like about a Bigfoot type creature kind of like terrorizing a small town. And actually the Bigfoot suit was created by Rick Baker. So that's pretty cool. And it did look decent actually for 1973. I then went on to go see the Kentucky Fried Movie from 1977, which this was a strange one. It had the Zucker brothers were involved. They did Airplane and the Naked Gun movies. And basically this was kind of like an anthology film with like different skits. And it was some were okay, some were decent, some were funny, not laugh out loud funny. But if you're curious, that's called the Kentucky Fried Movie. Okay, we mentioned Animal House, we mentioned Blues Brothers, Werewolf in London, Trading Places. So, okay, Trading Places came out in 83, same year as the Twilight Zone, the movie. Now, I just want to touch on this real quick. It's a very unfortunate thing that happened during the filming of the Twilight Zone movie. There was they were filming a Vietnam sequence involving a helicopter. Somehow the helicopter lost control and it actually crashed and killed I believe 3 people, 3 of the actors, one of which was Vic Morrow, who was in the first segment of the movie, where he gets kind of transported to different time periods like World War II and Vietnam. And unfortunately, this helicopter accident killed 2 people, and Landis was actually charged. Well, he was involved in legal issues in regards to I think it's involuntary manslaughter. And so that kind of it was a serious hiccup in the filmmaker's career, but he eventually would move on, thankfully, to some decent films after that. Around this time, this was also around the time of Thriller. I believe that was a year before in 82. But yeah, the Twilight Zone accident, it's very horrific, and it's unfortunate and really freaky because it was the Twilight Zone movie, so the thing cursed or something.
I mean, if I may comment on this, I mean,
Yeah, sure.
I don't want to go into too much detail, but actually this accident even led to Spielberg wanting to pull from the project, but the producers didn't let him because, then he'd be guilty of the crime. Landis would be guilty. So instead of doing like a remake of Monsters Are Due on Maple Street, which would involve special effects, he decided to do Kick the Can instead, which would be much safer, which you can see in the film's final product, why this is one of the lesser of Spielberg's notable works.
Right.
And also one other thing I want to mention, you keep bringing up the Duke brothers appearing in Coming to America. Well, in the Twilight Zone movie, in the Vietnam War sequence, one of the troops actually says, "I told you guys we shouldn't have killed Lieutenant Niedermeyer." They made an Animal House reference to the bully Niedermeyer, who at the end of the movie, spoiler alert, it's reported that he was sent to Vietnam and was killed by his own troops. I don't know how to feel to see an Animal House reference in a Twilight Zone movie, and it does go by so fast. It's like, why have it? But for those that really love Animal House, like myself, it's a nice little nod.
Gotcha. Yeah, for sure.
So,
And all
just kind of expanding the John Landis universe.
Of course, wow. And also the opening sequence where it's like the 2 men driving in the dark road at night. It's that was Dan Aykroyd and Albert Brooks. And they were it was very meta. They were like singing TV theme songs, one of which was the Twilight Zone. So despite the horrific accident, it is actually a really good movie.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah, I love it. And there's some really good practical makeup effects as well. But yeah, Twilight Zone, the movie from 1983. It's really a forgotten gem, underrated, I'd say.
Yes, I agree.
All right, so next up, there's a movie called Into the Night, which I really had no idea what it was until I watched it a couple nights ago. And this was like a weird like comedy slash thriller with Jeff Goldblum and Michelle Pfeiffer. And I don't know if you guys have seen this one, but it actually wasn't that bad. Like it's kind of like an Alfred Hitchcock type of situation. Like it's like, you know, Goldblum plays this kind of like nerdy guy. He's got insomnia. He gets involved with Michelle Pfeiffer's character, who's being like chased by like Iranian terrorists or the mob or whatever. And they kind of like go on this adventure together. And it wasn't that bad. Landis, he's actually acted in a number of his films. In this one, he doesn't speak, but he plays one of the mafia guys, the villains. So that's called Into the Night. Came out in 1985, same year as one of my all-time favorite Landis films, Spies Like Us. I don't know if you guys are fans, but again, Dan Aykroyd, he's back. They team him up with Chevy Chase. They kind of go on this like adventure. They're recruited by the government and the military to basically infiltrate some kind of mission in the Soviet Union. Lots of fun. Bob Hope has a cameo in it. You know, of course, him and Bing Crosby did a bunch of these types of movies back in the day, I guess in the 50s. And yeah, again, lots of cameos in this one, lots of fun. So Spies Like Us, love it. Just a feel-good movie, just like Trading Places. And this is interesting. I just found this out too. Landis was actually responsible. He was responsible for the story of Clue, and he was actually executive producer on that. So yeah, thought I'd mention that.
Never would have guessed.
Yeah. He was super busy in the 80s. Like that was his decade. You know, he was like making a movie at least once a year. In the 86, he did Three Amigos, which, you know, childhood favorite. I'm assuming you guys are fans.
I've never seen it, but it's on my list. It's just never been high for me because, well, while I'm, excuse me, while I'm expecting it to be a fun movie, I'm not expecting it to be a top tier John Landis film by any means. But hey, I expect to get some good laughs out of it. It looks visually interesting too, so something I'll definitely look into down the line.
It's not the greatest movie, but it's really fun and it's really a hoot to see Chevy Chase, Steve Martin, and Martin Short. Like the three of them, you know, obviously comedic geniuses, legends. So
like it's not like one of those films that it's not here to challenge you like Trading Places. It's just here to just give you a good laugh, make you forget your troubles altogether, and just have a good time. That's what it sounds like to me. And
yes,
I'm all for that.
yeah,
We all need a good laugh in a comedy.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't always have to be super deep or serious. Sometimes we just need to be entertained for the sake of entertainment.
I think it was around this time and Coming to America where he reached like sort of the end of his reign as comedy king, or because he hasn't really done a horror movie since I think, yeah, it was Werewolf in London and Twilight Zone. Those are like his two most notable horror movies. And it's a shame. Oh no, you know what? I stand corrected. I am looking at his filmography here up close. In 1992, he did a really good vampire movie called Innocent Blood. Not sure if you guys know about this one, but it's basically about a sexy French vampire who moves to, I think it was Baltimore. Basically, she only kills criminals. So she gets involved with the mob and starts like feeding on them, killing them, turning them all into vampires. The head mafia guy is played by Robert Loggia, and he turns him into a vampire, and he tries to turn his entire criminal element into like undead flesh eaters. And it's actually a lot of fun. Don Rickles is in it. He also plays a mafia guy. It's called Innocent Blood, guys, from 1992.
I have to check this out. This sounds like fun.
It's a lot of fun. It's got great special effects, a lot of practical, and a really good cast too. So Innocent Blood, check that one out. So yeah, okay. So he did. I actually didn't see this one. Amazon Women on the Moon, which also had Joe Dante involved, who is also one of my all-time favorite directors of the 80s. fantastic horror sci-fi comedy guy. Oh, Oscar. So this film I literally was just watching before we started recording. This was a weird one. Sylvester Stallone plays a reformed mafia guy who basically is trying to get his daughter to not marry this guy, and there's like a lot of confusion and kind of like craziness going on in his mansion. It wasn't that great, unfortunately. Stallone did his very best, but one of Landis's weaker efforts, I'd say.
I agree. I saw Oscar
Oh,
as
Oscar?
well, and yeah, I just found it really boring and
Yeah,
nothing much happened. I kind of didn't really see the point of it. It just kind of was dud.
right. I mean, you've got Sylvester Stallone. I mean, that's serious star power. They could have done. I think I blame the script for its downfall. But yeah, that's Oscar from 1991. In 1994, Landis actually directed the third Beverly Hills Cop movie, which pretty much everyone that I've talked to about this movie does not like it or hates it. I enjoyed it actually. I think it was pretty decent. Like it was basically Die Hard in an amusement park. I don't know if you guys have seen Beverly Hills Cop 3, but yeah. It was
I mean,
I,
I haven't seen any
somebody,
of the Beverly Hills Cop movies, but the premise, maybe it's not well executed. It does
right.
sound like an interesting premise nonetheless.
It is. Yeah. And it had some really good I don't know if you guys are familiar with squibs or the like guns on set. They to make it look like you're getting shot, and there'd be like these little like explosions on your body, which would like explode into like red paint, blood paint, like fake blood. Beverly Hills Cop 3 had great use of squibs, I think. And it was pretty funny. It wasn't hilarious, but it had, it brought back Bronson Pinchot as one of he was in the first film. I don't know if you remember him. Surge. Basically, he was the highlight of the third installment. But everyone I talk to really they're not a fan, and I try to convert them, but whatever. Beverly Hills Cop 3, I think it's a fun movie. Okay, so we're in the mid 90s now with Landis. He did The Stupids in 1996 with Tom Arnold, which was a ridiculous comedy. He did Blues Brothers 2000, which Tyler and I think we're trying to forget, except for the music. Okay, he did a movie called, same year he did Susan's Plan, which I have not seen. Looks like he was an executive producer on The Lost World, not the Spielberg version, but a different version. Looks like a direct-to-video. Then he did not work between 1998 and 2010. In 2010, he directed his last movie as to date. This movie I also watched today called Burke and Hare, which which wasn't like that bad. It was basically Simon Pegg and Andy Serkis. It takes place in the 1800s Scotland, and they play these like two grave robbers who sell the dead bodies to medical colleges. And it had a pretty good premise. It wasn't hilarious again, but I respect what Landis tried to do here. And it's kind of, I really hope that's not going to be his final film, because it's not a great way to sign off, because it was a kind of a lackluster film. He was also an executive producer and a bunch of stuff. But yeah, Burke and Hare was his last film from 2010. I hope that he can enter like a new renaissance of his career, because we named some great films from the 70s and 80s, and it would be great if he would just return to that, because he's not that old. He's 73, and I mean, it's up to him, but it'd be great to see him return behind the camera. What do you think, guys? Do you want to see another Landis film?
Of course, I'm always interested. He still has talent, and he seems to still have that high spirits that he had years ago. So,
Yeah.
yeah, who knows? I'd be down for it.
Sure. Yeah, he should do
Yeah,
some.
I would be too. Yeah. I would love to see him, yeah, do more of the horror comedy stuff that he does so well, or more music based stuff. Like I would love to see, his wheelhouse, like the stuff that he does the best, like the horror comedy or the music.
Mhm.
Like, I always appreciate directors who want to explore their projects, or whatever they get hired for. And also I feel like we haven't seen his best work, the things that he really excels at, in a really long time. So it would be fun to see. I'd even see, like a sequel to, I think he could get by with some sequels of his older projects if they were as funny, as, as those classic films.
So I didn't see an American Werewolf in Paris. Did you guys check that one out?
No.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I heard it horrendously bad. Yes,
yeah,
I
yeah.
haven't gotten.
I didn't want to waste my time with that one, but it's like hit or miss, like because Sam Raimi, he extended the Evil Dead universe with Ash versus the Evil Dead. So wouldn't it be amazing if Landis would go back and do that with like Werewolf, or I mean, dare I say Blues Brothers? I mean, it would be cool to see an origin story. I know Tyler, you're probably against that idea. If it's done right, I think,
Yeah, if it's done right, I'm not saying no altogether. I don't have any. I'm just saying if the origin story is handled anything like the Blues Brothers 2000, we are in serious trouble.
Yeah.
Or if the film takes itself so seriously, we're also in big trouble. So,
Right,
it has potential. It's just how you execute it. What story you're trying to convey?
right.
What's the message? But it would be interesting. I just don't know how that would work, but you never know.
Yeah.
I'm open.
It's a very like specific line that, it could go either like horribly wrong or really awesome. But
Right.
it's like right
Gamble.
in the middle. It's like it's so tricky at this point. Um,
Really, in all honesty, I hate to bring up this film again, at least with Blues Brothers 2000. While yes, it tanked, they had something to work off of, which was let's copy the same formula as the first movie. With the Blues Brothers origin story, you don't really have that.
yeah,
So that's going to be difficult, but also maybe very rewarding. Who
yeah.
knows?
It's tricky because the last time we had something like that I mean I was actually legitimately excited for the Willow TV series on Disney Plus. Um, I was it was totally not what I expected. It did not fit in with the original film's style and tone, and the story was just I wasn't interested in the story or the characters, and it was just like kind of an insult to the original film, I think. So if they do anything Blues Brothers related, it's got to be handled very, very carefully and by a fan, someone who knows the source material and respects it and has a clear vision. So I guess we'll
I
see.
agree. And I think what's interesting about like Kentucky Fried Movie, like I did like that movie as well. I feel like I'm a little embarrassed by how much I love like Airplane or Top Secret, like these very broad comedies that really just kind of go for like very obvious things.
Mhm.
But I love those movies too. I wish actually they'd make more of them. It feels like that type of humor has gone out of style. And I love a lot of the new humor. It's more, much more subtle and dry than, like a sight gag. But I kind of miss those movies as well. I feel like, what's I think You Should Leave, I think is taking up some of that, mantle, which is a wonderful sketch show, where the sketches are really completely outrageous, and so I feel like that would be fun, I think, to see if like they did History of the World Part 2
Mhm.
way after the first one. So I think I would even be open to like a Kentucky Fried Movie, him doing that now, just to have, because the History of the World Part 2 was also that very kind of lots of sight gags and kind of just being silly. And so it even would be fun to see him go back to that. It would be kind of sad to see him kind of just peter out from these films that aren't that great, when he has contributed to cinema in so many ways.
Yeah, we definitely need more of him. I kind of wish I were around, or at least a teen or an adult in the 80s, to just enjoy these movies on the big screen with everybody else for the first. Imagine seeing Trading Places for the first time in a theater. I think that would have been incredible. So also, I don't know if you guys know about See You Next Wednesday. It's a recurring gag in pretty much all of the Landis films, where let's see here, usually referring to a fictional film that is rarely seen and never its entirety. Each instance of See You Next Wednesday in Landis films seems to be a completely different film, and it's kind of like a weird thing. Like he usually has, like, if it's in a movie theater scene, there's always a See You Next Wednesday poster or a reference. It's like a random thing. Yeah,
Or
it's
like a marquee in the Blues Brothers. Like that's where the
yes.
customer are stationed behind when they catch the Blues Brothers speeding. The second time they encounter them. I'm sorry, no, on the road, that is.
He uses it in pretty much every single film, it looks like. And it's like a weird thing. It's like just like a weird gag. Kind of like I don't know if you guys know the director Peter Hyams. He I think his ex-wife, or his wife's maiden name was Spoda. So he, in most of his films, has a character named Spoda, like Bob Spoda or something. So I love when filmmakers do that. They have like a little inside thing. So that's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's true. When in Kentucky Fried Movie, there's a scene where there's a character who's going into a movie theater, and the schlock is the movie poster on the wall. Going into, he likes to reference his movies and put little private jokes in there. It's very cool.
And the scene in Thriller, where Jackson and his girlfriend, they leave the movie theater, you could see a poster of schlock. So it's pretty cool.
And they even mention See You Next Wednesday in the film that they're watching in Thriller.
Yep.
Which is great.
Love it. I love it. Oh, also, I just remembered John Landis, he also directed the Black and White music video for Michael Jackson.
Wow.
So, yeah. So they had a really strong working relationship. So it's pretty cool. So,
yeah.
Oh, sorry.
I heard a great story about Schlock, is that it was his first movie, and he got 60,000 from his bar mitzvah, and so he used that to make Schlock. And he is Schlock. He's the ape in the. I think you said that. But I loved that. That he was like, I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna start my movie career now, and he just kept getting better and better. I mean, I think Schlock is a first movie, is it's interesting. It's at times it's a hard watch, but I feel like in terms of where he went with it, I don't think it ever would have been predicted that he would so quickly become such a masterful filmmaker from that movie. But it's still like worth a watch for sure.
It's not a good movie, but it's a pretty good experiment in filmmaking. And for being a first film, like, ever, I mean, it's not that bad. And he would move on to do the Kentucky Fried Movie, which was just kind of vignettes. And then Animal House was basically his first major film, and then Blues Brothers, and then Werewolf in London. It just kind of went uphill from there. So yeah, fantastic filmmaker. I hope Burke and Hare is not his last movie. I really hope he does more stuff, at least something in the horror or comedy genre, or kind of hybrid, because that's where he really excels. And yeah, just fantastic filmmaker. I'm so glad we got to speak to him about him tonight. So this is good. All right, guys. So just a few minutes left. Any plugs? Anything you want to mention at this time, Ivy?
Yeah, you can just follow me on Instagram. It's my name at Ivy Lofberg. And you can find all my film stuff there.
Awesome. Mr. Michael.
You can follow me on Instagram as well. I'm called Tyler Movie Maniac. I also do a blog named after my Instagram, so you can also check that blog out for reviews or film analysis. So, yeah, follow me if you wish.
And also, we'll see you at Blood Manor, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, definitely come by Blood Manor if you can in New York City.
Awesome. Awesome.
That's
Love it. That's cool. As for me, if you want to catch new episodes of Under the Radar, just check out Slam Radio SXM on Sirius XM, channel 145. Also, if you want to see video versions of Under the Radar, just check out the Manhattan Neighborhood Network every Monday at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific. Feel free to also subscribe to the Under the Radar YouTube channel and share the love. So guys, Ivy, Tyler, this was amazing. John Landis is one of my favorite filmmakers, and I just want to thank you for sharing in my geekdom and my love for this great filmmaker. So thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. It was a real pleasure.
Great.
absolute pleasure. Thank you, Randy.
So guys, I'm Randy Younger. This has been Under the Radar. I'll see you next time. Take care.